It's no secret right now that the Star Wars fandom is divided, and divided hard. This is worse than the outrage some felt over the prequels. In fact, this divide has led many to realise that the prequels weren't that bad after all. So, what's caused this? I think the problem is twofold, but both folds are related. First, when Disney acquired Lucasfilm and the rights to Star Wars, it wasn't long before they announced that the expanded universe is no longer canon. They would be building from the ground up. Second, the new canon that we are meant to accept as what really happened is now the movies, plus the Clone Wars and Rebels TV shows, and any novels and comics, etc. that would come in the future. Here's why that hurt. Star Wars has been around since 1977. That's 35 years before Disney bought it and made these changes. Yeah, the Clone Wars was around before the buyout and is part of the problem, so we can't completely blame Disney for all this. So, yeah, I'm quite happy to put the blame on Disney and Dave Filoni for their combined efforts in destroying our childhoods. It all amounts to the same problem. Actually, scratch that. It's not Disney's fault. Disney are doing great with the Marvel movies. It's Lucasfilm, particularly Kathleen Kennedy, Rian Johnson, J.J. Abrams, and whoever else is putting together these films that are made in a committee. During those 35 years, countless, well, I'm sure they can be counted, but I'm not going to do it, countless games, books, comics, TV shows, radio dramas, and so on added to the Star Wars universe. That's 35 years of world building. For those of us who are die-hard fans, we ate this stuff up. We absorbed it, and it was all adding to the knowledge we had of this galaxy far, far away. I've been collecting Star Wars guys for about 20 years. My attic is half full of boxes of starships and vehicles and rancors and big stuff that there's just no room for downstairs. I was the type of person who was likely to buy a thing just because it had the Star Wars logo on it. I've got most of the FX lightsabers, but most of them are in pretty bad shape now from playing with them too hard. Idiot. When people want to get me a gift, they know the safe bet is to get something with Vader or Yoda's face on it. I am not a casual fan. So for me, it's been about 20 years of growing and learning more about this amazing galaxy. For others, it was up to 35. Over the course of that time, you build up a headcanon. A lot of the material gets weaved into your story of what happened in the Star Wars galaxy, but maybe a few things get left out. Sometimes it's because some of the stuff that came out made it really clear that it wasn't canon. Some stuff got retconned because I didn't realise there'd be more Star Wars coming later, and it just didn't make sense anymore. And some stuff you just don't accept because it's not very good, or it's dumb, or it contradicts other stuff. But once you strained out all the extras, you had a solid world that revolved around the galactic civil war with details that were just unparalleled in any fandom. There was a time I could have told you the name of every creature in the Mos Eisley Cantina and given you one or two interesting facts about them. Did you know Laxivrak was a rebel pilot during the Battle of Endor? After a while, the EU information was so interconnected to the handful of movies, you kind of forgot that a lot of it might not actually be real canon, and it informed the way you watched the films. A casual fan watching Return of the Jedi assumes all of Jabba's entourage died on the sail barge. A hardcore fan who followed the EU knew that the band got away, Boba Fett escaped the Sarlacc, controversial, and a few others made a last-minute escape. I mean, I haven't read every book and comic, or played every game. I haven't even seen the live-action Ewok movies, so my headcanon is likely different somewhat from the next hardcore fan, but I think for the most part, most fans' headcanons are pretty compatible. As you can see, that's an extensive list. Your headcanon might add more and take some stuff off. I think Star Wars Demolition might be a crowd splitter. For me, that and a few other entries might be more like semi-canon, in that the basic thing happened, but some of the details definitely didn't because they're contradictions. So like, in that example, Darth Maul didn't compete in the games because he was long dead, and Leia didn't compete because she hadn't shown up at the palace yet. I realise that some people would prefer that game on the trash heap of things that should be forgotten, along with Masters of Teräs Käsi and the Holiday Special. So that's my headcanon, which has been gradually building over the course of 20 years. It's ingrained in my mind as Star Wars as much as any of the main series movies are. It's the same for most fans. Like I say, my headcanon may be a bit different to the next guy's, but the fact is we all have this shared experience of growing in this galaxy for decades. Some people may not even know who Ichu Shenjon is, and that's okay. I personally never followed the adventures of Quinlan Voss, but I know he's a firm fan favourite. Some of these characters, who only appear in the EU, or are maybe retconned into the movies, have fan bases that rival some of the main movie cast. HK-47, Kyle Katarn, Grand Admiral Thrawn, Delta Squad. They were just as much a part of the Star Wars universe as Luke and Leia and Han and Vader. Then Disney and Dave Filoni rock up. They tell us that none of that counts anymore. This new stuff is what counts. That timeline looks like a very different galaxy to the one I grew up with. Some people do overreact about things destroying their childhoods, like the new all-female Ghostbusters. I mean, it sucked, but it's just a reboot. You can ignore it and enjoy the originals with no harm done. J.J. Abrams' Star Trek movies, yeah, not so much. It's an alternate timeline and they're free to play around with it, and again, it doesn't actually affect the original stories. But this is unequivocally telling us that everything we have loved and believed in is wrong, and we must accept this new stuff instead. We don't want the new stuff if it costs us the old. The reason we want the new is because we love the old. To a point, I understand the move. There was so much EU material. Some of it contradicted other stuff, some of it was rubbish, some of it was stupid. A friend of mine likes to remind me that in one book it was revealed that all Corellians, as a matter of culture, hate statistics because of that one line when Han says, "Never tell me the odds." So, I get that they wanted to trim the fat and get everyone on the same page, that we all knew what Star Wars was. There was no way they could possibly include everybody's headcanons. But the way they handled that was to absolutely destroy the franchise we love and tell us that we're all starting again. We're all starting over on this 35-year journey, and things probably won't be the same. And in the first couple of years we've already seen it's not as good, which just rubs salt in the wound. If the transition had been handled better, maybe we wouldn't have these issues. If the new movies were written with the so-called legends in mind, with respect to them, and tried to take the best of them and make movies that were compatible with them, I think a lot of us would still be okay. But rather than show us the history we've been familiar with of Leia becoming a senator, Han being a general in the Republic Army, and Luke founding a successful Jedi Academy on Yavin, we see Leia and Han fall apart. The Republic crumble back into a resistance that is indistinguishable from the rebellion, and Luke failing to train a handful of students out of a campsite. We can't even pretend our headcanons still fit, because they contradict too much. Personally, what I think the EU did so well with stories set after Return of the Jedi was to show the Republic being rebuilt, but the people facing new threats and dangers. The Empire was now the Imperial remnant, fragmented factions with Moffs and Admirals who all wished they could be the next Emperor. The dark times were over, the war was won, but there was still work to do. It was interesting. What Disney's sequel trilogy has done has told us that the happy ending of Return of the Jedi that we have enjoyed since 1983 counted for nothing. The dark times, which were the focus of the trilogy, and our entry into this galaxy were nothing compared to what happened 30 years later when the First Order came along with bigger ships and bigger superweapons doing the same stuff on a grander scale. If that's the case, why did we start our story in episode 4? Why bother with the small stuff when the real story is just being revealed now? It's just rubbish. This is something that Knights of the Old Republic did amazingly well. Sure, their story had some similar beats to the original trilogy, but they made it all smaller scale, which both worked with it being set a lot earlier, and also it didn't take anything away from the threat of the original Death Star. The sequel trilogy should have been more like that. Smaller, and more personal, and original. So, after 35 years of building a rich, deep, fascinating headcanon, we're all expected to dump it in favour of stories which mistreat and misunderstand the characters and events we've grown up with. When the fans learned there would be a sequel trilogy, we were expecting a new adventure with the old gang. Luke, Leia, Han, Chewie, R2, 3PO, Lando, and maybe cameos from like Akbar and Nien Nunb. One last fling before passing the torch to a new generation. That's all we wanted. Disney totally dropped the ball on that. Han died in episode 7 and had no screen time with Luke at all. Luke died in episode 8 for no reason, and we've lost Carrie Fisher in real life. So any hopes of maybe doing an episode 6.5 with the three of them, that's completely out of the question. So for me, and many others, I think the only way to retain our sanity is to stick with our headcanons and treat the new canon as legends. I'll just ignore it, just like how I have to pretend Indiana Jones died in that fridge and the rest was just a horrible dream. If I wasn't clear enough, Disney and Dave Filoni have demolished 35 years of growth and knowledge for no good reason. That is as close as you can get to literally destroying childhoods and tearing down a beloved franchise. A franchise that was the biggest phenomenon in the world. I don't wish violence on them, but maybe some jail time? Can we do that? 35 years in jail to make up for the years they stamped on? At the very least, just don't let them touch Star Wars anymore. Get a restraining order on them. I mean, really, Star Wars seemed like this untouchable monolith that would be around forever. It takes incredible skill to break something like that. It's had bad entries to the story before, and plenty of people aren't big fans of the prequels, but it was never like this, where lifelong fans are just not excited for the next installment. And this is why they're losing money on the latest films, and die-hard fans like me are jumping ship. There was even a boycott of Solo. I guess I was part of that in a way. I just didn't want to see it, so I didn't go. If I haven't made it clear enough, I have always been the die-hard Star Wars guy. I enjoy the prequels. For me to have no interest in seeing the latest film means that they've gone spectacularly wrong. Not only have they demolished the most detailed story world, possibly in history, they seem intent on wrecking individual characters within it too. And every wrong move they make is an attack on the headcanons we have known for as long as we've been fans. The fans don't want that. And when you already have the biggest fandom in the world, you don't need to worry too much about attracting new fans, especially if it costs you the diehards.